And by sectors, the most difficult area remains Myrnohrad-Pokrovsk. The largest Russian grouping there is 150,000 strong. And just recently, a statement appeared in the media from the Marine Corps, from a military representative, that in Myrnohrad, the Russians are already bringing in heavy equipment in the south. As I understand the situation, they are currently trying to entrench themselves and establish more permanent positions. In Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad, according to official data, there is the 7th Rapid Response Corps. Fighting continues in the north, yes, along the defensive line. What is the situation there? And again, what are the forecasts? Well, you don't like to make forecasts. Well, here.
There are a lot of forecasts, really a lot. They say it will be abandoned in 2 weeks, in 2 months, and so on.
And so on. It's primarily a matter of their focus, because if you examine the deep state map, the gray zone is steadily expanding toward Khraychin. What specific goal are they pursuing, and what could happen next?
If we take the deep state map, basically January is over. There are 2 days left. And we'll see the changes in Pokrovsk's fortifications on this map over the course of this month. We can see that they have made tactical advances within Pokrovsk. They're almost at Pokrovsk there. The gray zone between Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad has increased. Similarly, the gray zone toward Khraychin has also expanded. In other words, they want to break into Khraychin, they're fighting for Rodinsky. They're trying to advance toward Bilitske, which is a settlement above Rodinske to the north.
Near Dobropilya.
Well, yes, that's already closer to Dobropilya, but they're all on the same route. Both Bilitsky and Rodinsky are on the same road. So we can see their attempt to cut off logistics. Both Khraychin and Rodinsky are settlements that on the deep state map seem far apart, but in reality they're quite close. And there are basically no roads between them. Maybe there are some dirt roads or tree lines and so on. That's why they want to close off all the roads, deprive us of logistics, and in this way force us to choose between fighting an operational encirclement or retreating. So the issue of Khraychin and Rodinsky is really about this. It's about cutting off logistics. That's what they're trying to do right now. They are trying to enter these settlements, establish themselves there, and then accordingly force us to make that choice.
Approximately 1 week ago, reports emerged from strategic military analysts suggesting that the Russians have a plan B. Because their recent advance, after all, cannot really be described as truly significant.
It's the smallest it's been in the last 10 months.
What's important is that a group of 80,000 is forming. This is in Kharkiv region and around, actually not even Kharkiv, but further south, around Slovyansk and Kramatorsk. What could they open up? Another front with large-scale attacks. And I looked at the detailed deep state map, and it is true. You can really see the gray zone expanding, the advance toward Kostiantynivka, and especially around Slovyansk.
Well, Slovyansk, Kramatorsk.
So, could they leave this position, this Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad section, unfinished and switch their focus there? Do they have enough resources to open up, so to speak, another front?
I'll venture to suggest that they do not. They need to finish the story with Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad in order to free up troops and have greater opportunities to advance on Kostiantynivka. Kostiantynivka is already hanging over them at the same time. Lyman is also hanging over them. And after all, Chasiv Yar is also hanging over them. It's been almost 2 years for them already. They need to finish something in order to finally start the offensive. A major one towards Pokrovsk, Slovyansk, and Kramatorsk. I think, first of all, they need to finish the story with Pokrovsk. And the longer we hold out there, the more we effectively postpone the story of the Russian Federation's planned offensive towards Kostiantynivka, Slovyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka, and maybe even Lyman.
5 directions. Basically, yes, there is no offensive because they're stuck on just one.
Well, they've concentrated approximately 150 to 170,000 personnel there in the specific Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad directions. That's not a third, but...
With forces like that, in 2022, they were advancing along the entire front line.
And here we're talking about just 2 cities, basically. Relatively small in the context of Ukraine, actually, because Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad are not the largest cities.
Zaporizhzhia direction, 12 kilometers from Zaporizhzhia. We're talking about Stepnohirsk, roughly. How threatening is the situation?
The gray zone extends toward where the Konka River flows.
And it's expanding, right?
It is steadily expanding in size. If you choose to place your trust in the deep state map, it doesn't appear to cross over the Konka River, which meanders and flows north of Stepnohirsk into the former Kakovka reservoir. What remains of it, there's basically nothing left there. There again is Dekilu, Veliki Lu. So fighting continues in Stepnohirsk. For them, Stepnohursk is important so they can gain a foothold there and set up artillery. And then shell Zaporizhzhia from there. Yesterday, I found out that they're already using MLRS to shell Zaporizhzhia, directly targeting the city itself.
Standard tube artillery?
Ground-based? MLRs. Absolutely, yes. MLRS, multiple launch rocket system. Whether it is a Grad, Smerch, or Uragan, it is unclear, but it is MLRS. In fact, artillery fire is already being conducted within the Zaporizhzhia city limits. What does this threaten? Understood. Because artillery strikes without warning. There won't be an air raid alert. There will just be an artillery salvo. And whoever gets lucky, gets lucky. And for those who aren't lucky, unfortunately, they're not lucky. And then for them, after Huliaipol, if we continue moving a little bit further towards the east, they have Orikhiv. And by the way, the issue of Orikhiv in principle also fundamentally boils down to the strategic importance of Tokmak in order to successfully advance away from the ongoing explosions. And so they are creating a situation that, at some point in the future, could pose a direct and significant threat with offensive actions towards Zaporizhzhia. But these are already quite ambitious plans. That is what they are doing for themselves. They are building them. How they will be brought to fruition, when, in what way, and how much time will pass, that is a significant question for the future.
One could laugh about it. But is it really just a joke or a mere coincidence that Gerasimov once again officially announced the capture of the strategically vital transportation hub of Kupyansk and the surrounding villages? Or are they actually preparing for another offensive on Kupyansk? Why is this specific area so important?
First of all, excuse me, but they got their faces a bit smashed there in Kupyansk. They kind of understand that because it's right there on the map. They understand the situation that for them, Kupyansk is like Stalingrad. And they have to report to their superiors that they control Kupyansk and they need to seize territory on credit and so on. But the situation in Kupyansk is such that we are waiting for the destruction of those groups that remain in the city. The Russians do not have a direct blockade of Kupyansk. But if we talk about the Kupyansk railway junction, they do have some ideas there, let's say, which are gradually turning into actions. This is an advance from the direction of Piszczane. Piszczane and Kurylivka are settlements located to the east of Kupyansk railway junction, emphasizing Kupyansk railway junction. And there, let's say, attempts by Russian forces to become more active in this direction are being observed. And that's about 5 kilometers from the railway junction. In other words, this is like taking territory on credit, so to speak. Kupyansk Vuzlovi, definitely. Another instance of taking territory on credit. But basically, they do intend to advance specifically from this direction.
Denys, as always, thank you for the interesting conversation. Our guest in the studio was Denys Popovych, military observer.